showing out, making moves, no doubt. FFA pride, it's what we're all about. From classroom dreams to real world flair, we got the stories you won't find anywhere. Beyond the jacket where the stories unfold, voices of the future, fearless and bold. Tune in now, let the passion ignite. It's more than a jacket, it's a way of life. Beyond the jacket where passion meets purpose.
Today on Beyond the Jacket, we are joined by someone who has not only made FFA history, but is inspiring members across the country to find their place in agriculture. Our guest is Thaddeus Bergschneider, the 2024-2025 National FFA President from Franklin, Illinois.
Thaddeus' journey with FFA began with a little nudge from his dad. Even though his interests were different from those of his brothers, his dad encouraged him to give FFA a try. That decision ended up opening the door to opportunities he never imagined. From raising turkeys on J.P. Bergschneider's farms to competing in agricultural sales career development events to excelling in, extemporaneous. Listen, I did do FFA. It was just 13 years ago, okay?
That word is very hard.
No one actually says extemporaneous. It's always extemp, right? Like you.
I'm like, good Lord. From raising turkeys on J.P. Bergschneider's farms to competing in agricultural sales career development events to excelling in extemporaneous. It's extemporaneous. Yes. Okay, yeah. I'm just going from there this time. Extemporaneous public speaking, Thaddeus discovered that his unique passions and talents could thrive in the blue jacket.
Today, we'll hear how that early push from his dad set the stage for leadership at the highest level in the organization, how he's using his platform to encourage inclusivity in agriculture, and why he believes every member has something valuable to contribute.
Let's dive in and get to know more about Thaddeus' story, his vision for the year ahead, and the lessons he's learned along the way. So Thaddeus, thank you so much for joining us. And why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, pleasure to be with you today, Rachel and Lacey. I did grow up on a farm in central Illinois, corn, soybeans, and cattle, 30 minutes southwest of Springfield in a little town called Franklin. And real small town, like 600 people. My graduating class was 14 my senior year. And especially compared with my family size, I grew up in a family of 9, 6 siblings, Luke, Bethany, Clark, Brindlin, Gracia, and Thane. So a very small community, and at home, just always a part of a team, right? Like I never grew up as an only child. I never grew up doing anything alone. It was always with somebody else. So that was the environment I grew up in. And then, like you spoke about, my dad pushed me into FFA, and just so grateful for the experiences that I've had since then and that we get to talk about today.
That's so cool.
I love that you have so many siblings. That's awesome. That's the one thing I didn't find online was how many siblings you had. How many is that?
6 siblings. I'm one of 7.
Dang.
Yep.
And you're not the youngest?
Nope, I'm the third. So Luke and Bethany older than me, and the other 4 down. Yep.
Gotcha. Now, I have to ask, with the push from the dad, was it that you were like, I'm not going to do FFA like maybe your older brother had? Was it more of like, I don't want to follow that lead? Or was it kind of like, what? Explain that. Because I honestly had a little bit of a similar thing. I skipped my freshman year of FFA because I was like, I don't want to do that. Brad did it.
Yeah. So I think for me, it was less of the sibling dynamic. I just remember being in the truck with my dad on our way to the school to pick out my classes my freshman year, or going into my freshman year. And I'm with my dad, he's driving, I'm in the passenger seat, and I work up the courage to tell him, hey Dad, I don't think I should take an ag class. And he just kind of said, too bad, like we're signing you up anyway. and so that's how it started. But to your point, the motivation behind it for me was I'd seen my grandpa and my dad on the farm my whole life. And I loved that farm. Like 3rd grade, I remember taking care of my bottle calf. That was my first experience with livestock, raising pigs, painting fences, doing anything Dad needed on the farm and helping out. I loved that. I loved my dad, my grandpa, my family, but I just didn't see myself filling the same jobs and the same roles. You know, my love for reading and poetry and chess, I seemed to trend in this nerdier, more academic direction than my brother Luke. And when I asked my dad if I could do something different in an ag class, I was envisioning AP classes and college classes and finance and this and that. And I just didn't see yet, I couldn't see yet that those interests were going to fit in agriculture as well. And my dad had the maturity and the vision to be able to tell me, no, Thad, your talents are applicable to FFA and you're going to find that path. It just might look a little bit different than it does for me, your brother Luke, your brother Thane. So took his maturity to push me in.
Let's take us back to young Thad at that age. You're forced to take an ag class. What was your first impression of your first ever ag class?
I think it was the creed for me, really. So my ag teacher, Brent Nelson, single teacher program at first until Miss Kane came along my junior year. He made me memorize the FFA creed, as all freshman FFA members do. And then I remember the day when he said, "Hey Thad, I know you know the creed really well at this point. You have your punctuation down. Now you're doing it in front of the class." And it's that dreaded first public speaking moment when you're not just giving a speech in front of your small 4-H club or talking at the dinner table with your family. You're in front of your peers. And that's the moment when he really pushed me in. He challenged me. And after giving the creed that one time, he pushed me to compete at the section, district, and state level. I was a COVID kid my freshman year during that spring. And so when I competed at state in the creed, I remember being in my living room in my dress shoes, which felt weird anyway because I was on my mom's carpet in my dress shoes. And I was like, this is not right. This is not how this should be. And I just remember giving the creed in front of the camera, looking out the windows, seeing our harvesters, seeing our feedlot. And when talking about the traditions of our agriculture life, the traditions of American agriculture, I just felt chills. And I think that's the moment that really hooked me, was walking through the 5th paragraph of the creed in my living room as a freshman. I believe that American agriculture can and will hold true because I felt that deeply. I resonated with it. I was on my family's farm as I was giving it. And after that, I was hooked.
That is such a cool story. I actually love hearing that because I won't lie to you. There is a little bit of FOMO that I get from getting to talk to you, because one thing I do regret is not pushing myself more when I was in the Blue Jacket, because I think I would have loved to have been a national or even state officer. And I think I kind of drug my feet a little bit more. And so I'm even more grateful. And I think that's why I'm so committed to giving back to FFA now, even though I'm pushing 30, because life took me a different path, and now I'm able to still be a part of it and advocate. So I love that your dad took that moment of like, you're going to regret this probably, like just do it. And then you have used it to its full extent. And I think that's really incredible, because I mean, being the National FFA president is really freaking dope, Thad. Like, that's so cool.
Well, thank you. But I'd say that I even look back and I wish I would have done more things in my FFA journey. Like, I look back and I'm like, why did I not compete in agri-science? Why didn't I use that academic side and that research-focused side of myself? And my sister's love for research. My sister is in an MD PhD program right now, and she specializes in microbiology in her undergrad. And it's like, what were we doing? Why didn't we work on a project together while we were both in high school? So I'm still going through the same thing. I was thinking, man, I could have done more. But now, like you said, we get to focus on our FFA journeys are almost over. Mine's almost over. How can we give back to those people who still have the opportunity?
I think for those people listening, obviously Lacey and I are beyond the jacket at this point. We're years past being an FFA members. And so I think it's really great to reminisce on what we wish we would have done, because for those listening, they can now still do those things. And I think that's a great opportunity. One thing that we didn't get to do in school is we never got to learn the creed unless we were the student chosen to learn the creed. And so I never took that opportunity to go memorize it and really dive into the words and figure out what it means. And so that's one thing when you're talking about it, that I'm like, wow, he really resonated with those words. And I never took that opportunity. And so if you're a freshman, make sure that you ask your FFA advisor to teach you the creed, teach you what all of those paragraphs really mean and the history of them. I think that's really cool. So that kind of leads us to our next subject. One thing before we started recording is we were talking about kind of researching each other and learning about each other's history. And one thing I read, Thad, is that you love poetry. And so I would love to touch on that, and then how that kind of, combined with your ag experience and where that got you in FFA.
I think the poem that best exemplifies this, and I'm trying to remember the end of it in my head, is one I wrote about bucking bales. So that was one of my first summer jobs my freshman and sophomore year, first with the Doers and then with Ryan King, was riding the bale wagon, going out there bucking straw bales if it was a good day, some heavy alfalfa and hay bales if it was a bad day, struggling, sweating, waiting until Ryan said I could get to the jug and finally get some water. And out of that experience and out of my love for spoken word and trying to capture those emotions, I wrote a poem about bucking the bales. And it goes, upon the rows of golden sea he stands, brown and muscled, strong and tan. Upon his golden ships he rides, all flesh but a metal hook for hand. And as I think back to it and think about stacking that wagon and raising that golden mast up to the sky, it just captures the essence of what it means for me to work in agriculture, to buck bales, to be alone in a field in nature. And I think that's what poetry is in some way. This is going to be me nerding out and going on a tangent, but I think T.S. Eliot said that poetry is the Bunsen burner of literature. It's the essence, it's the smallest flame, it's the flame in its purest form. And I think when we talk about speeches or we talk about books, like there's a lot of words, there's sentence structures, there's laws around how we have to speak in order to articulate things clearly. But poetry is when you just say, what is this moment? What is this emotion? And throughout my time in high school and now writing poetry, I just love capturing moments like that, bucking bales and writing about it, feeling like a pirate on my bale wagon, being at sunrise on the bench in White Lake, North Carolina when I was there for FFA camp, and then drawing the parallel between how you watch the sun illuminate the horizon and how you see a smile illuminate a stranger's face. Like, I think those moments in poetry for me are just capturing the essence of things.
I love this. I love this so much. I feel like you have you're such a well-rounded individual, to be honest. Like, I like reading ahead and doing the research of just knowing that you're obviously extremely involved in FFA and multiple different facets of FFA. But hearing this poetry side, I think is so cool because that is not something that you would always put with somebody who is in FFA. And I think that's a big thing we push on this podcast, is showing that FFA looks different for everybody and everybody can join FFA. Like, it is not just for if you live on a farm or you enjoy crops or, livestock. So we also have here from our research that you play basketball. So that's just another thing to add to the Thad list of all the things he's good at.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, part of this is just being from a small town, right? Everyone asks you to be a part of everything because you only have 14
True.
kids in
They
your
needed
class.
another team.
So you need warm bodies, right? Like, you're just trying to fill spots. But I would say, yeah, I also pulled so many lessons from basketball. My keynote this year on the road was actually about basketball, and it was how I competed in an all-star game three-point contest, and I went 0 for 25. Like, 0 for 25.
That's like pretty good. That's like all of them, right?
No, zero. Like, zero.
I was gonna say,
zero.
wait,
I was like, what?
I think we're backwards.
No, yeah, no, I made none. And so I've never been so embarrassed in my whole life. My family, my girlfriend were watching. My teammates, don't want to look at me. It's bad. Like, everyone else was making 10 out of 25 at least, and I put up a goose egg. And so after that, I'm like,
smile though.
no, dejected, like absolutely sad, depressed, humiliated afterwards. Yeah. And after that three-point contest, I go to college. I get the chance to be in a half-court contest, like a halftime half-court contest. And I missed 4 shots in a row. And this is after I got elected, actually. And then I make the half-court shot. But the whole speech is about how if you walk through the last 30 times I shot a basketball, I missed the first 29. I finally made the 30th. And as humans, we get really dejected from failure, and we're unwilling to take the next shot. It's all about how taking the shot, how not letting failure, the critics, the outer critics and the inner critics define your willingness to try is what allows us to move and push forward. And basketball taught me that. Like, just because you miss one shot doesn't mean you shouldn't shoot the next. Keep shooting, shoot or shoot. Like, however you want to phrase it. Important lesson for me. And you fail in one FFA contest, you didn't do great in agronomy. Livestock judging is still the next week, and the team's still going. Like, you have to pick yourself off the floor and keep pushing.
Yeah, I think that's a great thought there. Not even that, rejection doesn't have to lead to failure. You can keep going, but also that there's so many different opportunities. I think a lot of people think that they have to be good at one thing and they can't be a jack of all trades. And like you just mentioned, whether it's an agronomy contest, livestock judging, if it's floriculture, horticulture, whatever it is, there's tons of opportunities in FFA to really dive into different subjects and figure out what you love to do. So I think we've had quite a few different students on here that have talked about numerous different CDs, some that Lacey and I didn't even know existed, to be honest.
Yeah.
And they're so awesome to hear about those experiences. What's the most unique experience you've had in FFA besides being the president? Obviously, that is a huge, unique experience, but what's that one time or one memory that you're like, this was something different that I didn't know that we had?
I'd say that I got lucky when it came to the ag teachers I had in the program that I was a part of. Seriously, like I look back, and if I was not in the same program and I didn't have the same teachers, Mr. Nelson, Miss Kane, pushing me forward, none of these opportunities would have been possible. Like, before anything, that is like the caveat that has to be mentioned. But I'd say that extemporaneous public speaking, as you mentioned before, was the opportunity that I didn't know was A, possible, but B, I didn't know how deeply it would challenge me to research and articulate the struggles of the ag industry and what we do moving forward. And I'll always remember I had the opportunity to win the state contest my senior year and then prepare for nationals while I was a state officer. And Lauren Walter, who'd won the state contest the year before me, she had binders prepped, because in the state competition in Illinois, you don't use binders. Once you get to nationals, you do have paper material time. So kind of an interesting part of FFA too, like different states have different rules for contests that change as you move to nationals, which is a unique challenge for some members as they swap regarding competitions. But anyways, I'm thumbing through her binders and her resources, and she, no joke, had to have spent 3 weeks, a month putting these materials together, if not more. I mean, there's her interview list of people she called, there's the articles of the topics that she researched and her takes and what stories she was going to tell to connect them. I mean, Lauren put in the time, and I tried to emulate her and follow her example, but Extemp is a contest like all other contests in FFA that challenge you to dig deeper than you ever have before. And Lauren's resources prove that above and beyond.
That's super cool. That's so cool. Like, I love hearing about it, but then I also just get so jealous because I feel like I said, I just did not take all those opportunities. And so I'm over here like, man, I would have loved to have done this, that, or the other. But then you have to not hone in on that and make yourself, because like I said, 10 years later, I got to do some of the coolest stuff I've ever been able to do with being able to be a part of the FFA. So it's like, you can't dog on yourself too much. It's kind of just like those shots you don't take. It made me immediately think of The Office, where it's you miss 100% shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
And I think that's one of my favorite parts of being on the road this year is I get to go to Washington State Convention, and they have an apple judging contest. I don't know if you heard about that. That's very unique, which is neat because that's what their state's agricultural industry looks like. But while I was there at convention, they had a supervised agricultural experience video for one of the finalists. He is an ag mech shop kid, like that was his passion in high school, and eventually he started researching hydrogen-powered engines, and he started building one to power a semi for the place that he worked at. And there's projects and experiences of FFA members that just floor you, and that was one where I just went, wow, like I am so lucky that we're to be a part of a system where people are driven to do great things like that, and that's it.
Yeah, that's really cool. So maybe we dive in a little bit more about this whole, national president stuff, because I think that is something that is so cool, because you get to see all these different FFA chapters all across, because that's the thing. It's vastly different learning about, what kind of agriculture happens in Washington State versus Florida. So what were some of the key things? Because you were also the Illinois state president, I believe, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Yeah, so what were some of the lessons that you learned from that you think are going to help you with being the national president?
So at this point, I have 3 months left of national office before we're going to retire at convention. So I look back on those 9 months and I'm thinking, what really set me up for success in those 9 months? What's still pushing me forward? And I think back to the chapter visits that I did across the state. I got to do about 80 to 100 chapter visits in the fall of my state officer year across the state. So Section 1, Section 24, Section 8, Section 10, Section 11. For section language, that is like the northernmost section, the southernmost, the easternmost, the westernmost. And in those weeks, I got such an appreciation for how geography and environment help shape the people where they live. And I mean, in Section 24, I met so many people with rich agricultural tradition telling me about their family and their history raising corn and soybeans, or where their passion for agriculture came from, or the environment, how they love going to Shawnee National Forest, and that's what's driven them and to be passionate for environmental and natural resources. And then I got to go to Chicago in Section 8 and meet students like Caden, who is now a Section 8 president for Illinois FFA. And his experience with agriculture was completely different. And him being passionate about food and how we provide for people within an urban environment. And seeing the diversity of thought, the diversity of experience, the diversity of background just in Illinois is part of what pushed me to run for national office. And then within 4-hour drive in Illinois, those differences across the country, I think being a state officer just gave me an open mind and appreciation for where others come from and their unique story. And that's allowed me to soak it in a national office.
I love that. I feel like I always forget that Chicago is
Part
in
of Illinois. Yeah.
It's literally a part of the state. And so I always, equate that with like a bigger city. Obviously, I don't live too far from Illinois, probably like 45 minutes from the state, or an hour, maybe an hour. But so whenever I think of Illinois, I think of the rural communities in Illinois. But that's great to note that kind of, resonated with you as a national officer too, because you're getting to visit some of those larger, communities of students that are in more urban settings, and then how agriculture relates to them. I know inclusivity is a huge part of your story as far as finding your place in FFA. So when you're talking with students in more urban settings, do you change what you're talking about based on, talking to a rural community or urban community? How does that play into your role as the president?
I wouldn't say that it changes what I talk about. I'd say my approach to every conversation is going to be different based on, where I am, whether it's the classroom, whether we're on a field trip, what environment I'm in. I think back, I got to visit Orange County FFA in Florida, and I was there for just a day. They were having a conference, and I did a workshop with them. Before the workshop, though, I met this girl named Fabiana. And Fabiana came up to me. She was talking about her experience in agriculture, the creed, her family. After a 5 or 10 minute conversation, I learned that her family actually immigrated from Venezuela only a year and a half, 2 years ago. She's a junior now. And it was interesting. I then learned that she was the national winner in the Spanish Creed, which absolutely blew me away. I was like, congratulations, that's incredible. We keep going, and we get into my actual workshop that afternoon at 2 p.m. And we're writing about our goals, our journeys, and she stands up and she talks about how proud she is that she can speak English right now in front of this group of 10 or 12 people, and that was not possible for her a year and a half and 2 years ago. And FFA is what has pulled her in and given her that sense of community and family. And I'll never forget her, a couple tears rolling down her cheeks, talking about how proud she was that now she's communicating in English with these people, standing up in front of a group, which she would never have imagined possible. And when we talk about inclusivity, bringing people in, I don't think it's about national officers or me doing a good job listening. The more I think about it, I think it's us just appreciating great people and these great stories across the country. And when we appreciate her and them, I think we just affirm the great things we're doing. Anyways, it just came to me, and that was a special one.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you shared that, because that's really sweet. And that's honestly something that I think Rachel can agree with this, that's something we've noticed, as I think every FFA kid that we've talked to has had a great story, has had a phenomenal story, whether it was of hardships or just, a run-of-the-mill kind of typical story of oh yeah, I'm a third-generation farmer. It's so cool though, because there's always some kind of moment that makes it wow, this is an impressive kid I'm talking to. This is insane. And I think that's just FFA in general. I think that it just opens you up to really hear somebody's story and accept all of their different facets and how they make FFA for them, because it's not one set cookie cutter for anybody.
Yep. And I saw a post after Texas's state convention. Someone just posted randomly that they were staying in the same hotel as a whole group of FFA members. And at first they thought, oh no, I'm staying with a bunch of high school age kids. This is going to be a ruckus. I'm not going to be able to go to sleep. And then she went on to say that I've never heard so many yes ma'ams, so many open doors in front of me, so many polite people. FFA just does a great job of developing the skills for the next generation of leaders. And it's those soft skills, those intangibles that I think come through those hardships and those stories.
those qualities are something that you really learn, not just in the classroom, but through the experiences that FFA allows us to have. And I think oftentimes those are outside of the classroom, whether it's the contest where you get to meet somebody from a different state, if it's WLC, if it's meeting somebody at national convention. Those are the moments that I think we learn the most, and those soft skills of, this is how I should approach somebody professionally. This is how I approach, a new friend that I just met across the country. And I think that's amazing. I want to go back just a second to you running for state FFA office. Let's start with younger Thad. Obviously, we made it through freshman year. We've gone through high school. What was that moment that you were like, I'm going to run for state FFA office? And then after that, what was the moment you talked a little bit about talking to all these different, groups and different people and different students from across the state, and that kind of led you to the national office. But we kind of skipped a beat there of what made you run for state office to begin with?
So I think what really put me on this leadership journey was I wasn't even a section officer before I was a section president, which for our section in Illinois, it happens, but it's pretty rare, right? Like usually you work your way up the section office schedule, but part of what happened was we resectioned from section 13 to section 14 between my sophomore and my junior year. So I was walking into a new section. Franklin FFA had not been a part of section 14 before, and then my junior year, our first year in the section, I ran for the section president. So I gave a speech about tying my tie, the value of consistent action that I saw in the next year, and I was elected to that role. But the reason I went for it, the reason I did it in the first place, was because a workshop that I had attended at the section officer leadership training school the year before, and I came out of it, and I won't say like what workshop session it was. I mean, all those people were great. I don't want to fault any of them. But I came out of that day and some of those workshop sessions, and I was saying to myself, like, we have so much more potential than what we just showed. In that moment of being, wow, like, I think there's so much here. I think we have more potential as leaders, as people in agriculture. I want to see us take advantage of that potential. That's what pushed me to run for Section 14 office. That's what pushed me to be a state officer, is I feel like we have so much potential that we can continue to push each other to unlock. And honestly, that's probably a through line through national office. There are more motivations to run for national office after state office. But I'd just say, being a Section 14 member and saying we have so much more potential, and then running for Section 14 president is what did it for me.
Yeah, I think those are some of the greatest leaders, is when you see change that you people are doing a great job, but you're like, we have that potential to do even better. We have the potential to do even more. I remember when I was in Iowa, we have districts, not section. And I remember back to me being a district officer, and it was my second year of district office, and I was slacking big time. Like, I was not doing my role. I did not care. I was like, I got elected, big deal. And so I was kind of over it at that point, and I went through a slump. And I remember our state officer that was assigned to our team calling me out on it and saying, hey, I'm your friend, yes, but I'm also in charge of you, and I just want to make sure everything's okay. And before, giving me constructive criticism on how I could be better and show my actual potential, they said, I'm your friend. Is there something going on? And then let's move past this and let's do better, because I know you can. And I think that's a big part of FFA, is people being willing to give you constructive criticism so you can grow. It sounds like you were willing to, give your whole section, hey, we can do better. We are better than this. And so that's always great to see, is that students, keeping each other accountable through FFA, I think is a huge part of what makes all these FFA students so successful. And go back to those soft skills, they're really good at learning them. But part of the reason they're really good at learning them is because they experience things that people are willing to tell them and call them out of, hey, we need to grow a little bit. We have potential to be better.
And especially when you talk about being on a chapter, section, district, state, national officer team, like the ability to work on a team where you have constructive criticism and constructive conflict to hold each other accountable, like learning how to do that and to take that feedback and use it and not be resentful for it, and then give it to others and also deliver it in a kind way, like, man, what a lesson. And I know you were on an Iowa State officer team, and that's hard. like working on a team in that way for that length of time, that's hard, but I think one of the greatest lessons of FFA. Anyway, I just wanted to retweet what you said because that's awesome.
No, I think that's great. I think that's great. Okay, so let's go through, obviously, then you ran for National FFA office. What was that process like? You know, as we're fast approaching October, I'm sure there are several other listeners that are, you know, ready to run for National FFA office. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
So I had to commit to running for national office before I ended my state officer year because of the timing for me. So our state convention's in June, but the decision had to be made by, I want to say, May 12th. And I made the decision, I think, 2 days before the deadline. I mean, I was pushing it. I was thinking through it deeply. I didn't know what I was going to do. I'd already taken one gap year away from college, away from my family, away from home. National office would have been a second gap year. And thinking through such a momentous decision, I just kept asking myself, why? Why do you want to run for a national officer? If you were elected, what would you do that would bring valuable to such an already incredible organization? What would you bring that would be valuable to members across the country? And to answer that question for myself, I really had to go, number one, I struggled to figure out if I belonged in FFA, and I'm from a traditional ag background. Like, I grew up in corn and soybean fields with cattle 100 yards from my house, and I questioned if I belonged in agriculture. There are thousands of members across the country who also need to know that they belong in agriculture, and affirming that their talents, their strengths are valuable in the blue jacket is a number one priority. And number two, we all have our own individual journeys around mental health and around the hardship of life. And for me, being a vulnerable leader was crucial. I mean, I needed somebody in my life who was willing to step in and say, hey, I see that you're struggling, and not only is that okay, but struggles aren't just something that you get through and you get over. They're the thing that you leverage to then bring value and to bring healing to other people. And I think that's crucial. Like, struggles are not something that we're just supposed to get through and get over. We're supposed to use them to help impact others. And being a vulnerable leader to show others that not only is it okay, but that you can work through it and use it was my number two motivation to run. So belonging and vulnerability is what pushed me to run for national office. And then after I retired for state office, that began my prep journey. If you still want to know more about that, I can dive into it, but that was my motivation piece.
I love hearing that because genuinely I feel like that was something I struggled with, because when I started posting content, like last year I'm still covered in tattoos and I had blue and purple hair, and I think a lot of people could look at the surface level Lacey and be like, what the heck is this girl doing talking about agriculture? And I struggled myself being feeling if I was good enough or if I was a good representation for agriculture. I mean, when I first had my episode with Farm for Profit, I was terrified that these guys were going to just tear me up one side down the other because these were legit, farmers. And I was just this poser with pet cows and crazy hair. And I know a lot of people were shocked when FFA invited me as a content creator because they're like, what the heck is this girl doing? And I was like, this is the representation we need, because too many people think that there's one fit for the jacket of, did you grow up raising cattle or growing corn? Did you have soybeans? Okay, then no, this agriculture class is not for you. And I think that's what made me be more loud, honestly, with just, you can express yourself and have a different path than somebody else, but that doesn't mean you're any less valid in this industry. And it honestly means I think your voice needs to be louder, because it's like you need to show the people who might be on the fence of it, but they're like, I don't know if I'm going to fit into this, and let them realize that there's a spot for you too. I promise. There's no one good way to be in FFA. So I like that that's the reason for you wanting to run so bad, because I think that's really cool. I like that it's more than just, well, I really thought it'd be, a fun idea, or, oh, I wanted this on the resume. It's like, no, I wanted to make sure there was representation, and I was it.
Yep. And part of that belonging piece that I'd add too, one thing that I really considered when I was running was, there's a quote and there's a t-shirt I think out there that some people wear regarding FFA, and it says, FFA is not just sows, cows, and plows, it's leadership, blank, this and that. And like, some people resonate with that, and for them that represents their journey, and I can appreciate that. But for me, I think it's important to say that FFA is sows, cows, and plows, and
it's also
agri-science projects, and these pieces of leadership, and personal growth, and building character, and
it's all of it.
It's all of it. And when you say not, you're kind of creating this divide.
It makes it sound like it's excluding.
Exactly, between these traditional ag backgrounds that are still crucial to our communities and to rural areas. And it's important to remember that as FFA has expanded opportunities, that those opportunities are to assist in agriculture that has been here for centuries, right? Like when you expand opportunities in agriculture for the student who is interested in computer science and chemistry, what you're doing is not separating opportunities for students who are very different on a breadth of skill. What you're doing is creating opportunities for the people that need to rely on each other because of their different strengths. Because that computer scientist could unlock the next research regarding technology in agriculture, autonomous tractors, GPS precision regarding precision agriculture. Like that chemist could be the next one who ends up helping Bayer, who helps work on the next startup, could help unlock, fertilizer efficiency in fields. All those opportunities are there to aid and help production agriculture, and it's not just, but it's all.
Yeah, that goes back to the inclusivity aspect of it, of just understanding that, somebody who has the typical cattle production is just as valid as somebody who's in agribusiness. It's just, but they're all valid. It's not just, well, these are more popular now, so let's get rid of the main, like the, original type of agriculture. It's like, no. The sows and cows and plows are still just as valid. We just also have a lot of cool stuff now too.
Yep, exactly.
So I got to be at FFA convention last year, and I was lucky enough to get to hear you be announced as the national chapter president. And I was floored for all of these young adults that I did not know, but just the environment there is just everyone's already on 100, and the excitement runs through that place. But for you personally, is there any way you can describe what that feeling was when you heard your name?
So
I know that's a tough one.
Yeah,
I feel like.
that's loaded. I've told this story a couple times, but it connects back to the way we started this episode. So I'll ask you a question real quick, Lacey. Did you notice anything different about what I looked like when I ran up there?
Honestly, I feel like when I was watching, I was leaving because they had me going to another event. So I was like literally like this, and I just saw kids running up.
So the reason I asked this curious is I was wearing an old FFA jacket. I was wearing my dad's chapter jacket when I got elected.
Shut up!
Everyone
I'm gonna
is
cry in this episode.
And blue.
I just want a photo.
Yep, I can send you the picture later. And like my jacket is more like purple than blue at that point. And the reason I did it, I wasn't planning on it, but while I was at convention, I'm going through these interview rounds that last 5 or 6 days in total, nerve-wracking. In the middle of it, I text my mom before she leaves home, and I asked her to bring my dad's jacket with her because his jacket was the first jacket I wore in FFA for an ag sales contest my freshman year, and I wanted it to be the last jacket I wore if I wasn't elected. And so that's what I was planning on, was being in that line, not get elected. I'm wearing my dad's jacket. And then when I get my name called, I go up there, I'm wearing Franklin FFA, Paul Bergschneider on my chest instead of Thad. And so, yeah, it gets me teary-eyed now. But like when I was standing up there, yeah. But what actually made me cry that day was I got up there, I'm obviously like in shock. Like I'd say fulfilled was the best word to describe it. Like some of my teammates don't remember that moment. I remember every part. I remember standing on stage. I remember looking at them. I remember looking at the crowd, and I just felt so in awe and fulfilled of the prep I'd put in, and grateful for this position that they saw me fit. But I was in shock just like that for the whole time. But then the moment I cried was when I got off stage and I got to hug my dad, and he got to hug me wearing his jacket. And I'd say that's what I remember more than anything from that day. And that's what I remember feeling, is just like proud as a son, proud to be a Bergschneider, proud of the family and the community that raised me, and that I'd been able to get there.
Not me crying in the club.
Yeah, like Lacey and I are probably like impasse. People are gonna be like, why are they crying? But
I'll be like, listen, it's because I'm in my luteal phase. If you know, you know. No, so it's actually funny because when you asked that, then I panicked because I was like, oh God, did I notice anything? But now that you actually explain the story, there was a brief moment I remember noticing that your jacket was off color from the other ones, but I just like didn't even like think of anything because it was just so, you can feel the energy from the stage when you watch something like that, because those are just, you guys are just so stoked. And I mean, you have every right to be.
Yeah.
Like, that's an insane accomplishment. And so it's just all the hype was there. But then as soon as you started speaking and talking about that specific, I was like, oh my God, I do remember having that split thought last year of like, oh, his jacket is different than the other ones. But I was just like, whatever, I don't care. Like, you know, next, like, I'm just excited for these guys who just got to win the freaking national title. But that's so
We'll put
cool.
a photo. We'll put a photo into the podcast.
Because that's so cool.
I love that you described the moment as being fulfilled, though, because I think a lot of times when people talk about, you know, that big moment in their life, regardless of what that big moment is, when you put in hours and hours of work, and for you, it's years of work, becoming the National FFA president, and that moment where it all comes to fruition is just so special. And I'm glad that you got to remember it. At least sometimes, like you said, people, when it's a big moment like that, it just, your memory escapes you for a second.
Yeah.
But now looking forward to National Convention this year, what are you most excited for? I'm sure you have your speech already, or maybe not, I don't know. Or is that what you're going to work
The retiring address is not written yet. We'll get there eventually.
I don't think I can listen to yours because I'll probably sob.
I feel like we're going to have to listen now. I feel like you could throw a poem in there.
It's going to be good, I guarantee it.
Who
I'm
knows?
not even just hyping you up, Thad. I feel like it's going to, like, I'm going to cry. I'm going to tune in just to sob if I need a good cry.
So I'm excited to hear what that looks like. What does prep look like for National Convention this year?
Yeah, so I really have one more week of travel season. After we go to the Outer Banks for our retreat to really set up that foundation for convention, I'll get one more week in Kansas at a Green Hand FFA conference. And then other than that, the rest of the year is a combination of convention training for sessions, for retiring address, for business sessions, which is a crucial part of convention with our delegates. And amongst that prep, it's going to happen, and all the steps that we need to take are going to be fulfilled. We're going to have that prep ready. I'd say the thing that I'm most excited for isn't something that I'm going to do per se, but it's going to be walking through the expo, walking through the halls, walking through hopefully a couple of the hotels, seeing members competing, and just knowing how many members' journeys are taking huge leaps and bounds during that convention, right? Because, like, do you really remember what the national officer said on stage?
No.
No. Like, let's be really real about that, right? And I'm going to pour my heart and soul into making sure these sessions are fun and good so that, you know, you don't fall asleep really quickly in the crowd. And I'm going to spend time on my retiring address because whoever's there in session 7, I want them to have a message. I want that message to be something that I can look back on and be proud of, to represent my year. But at the end of the day, no one's really going to remember what I say, right? What's most important to me is A, the way we make people feel in the environment we create in convention, and then B, just being able to appreciate every delegate who gives impactful feedback during the delegate sessions that shape a committee report as I'm standing there chairing those. Hopefully getting to see members in the expo who I know just got to connect with a college or with a company that might kick off their career someday, that sparked their passion for this area of agriculture, that becomes their area of study for where they're going to go to school. Maybe they're just having a great time getting free custard and on the dance floor, and that's going to bring them close to their chapter officer team or their chapter. Maybe it's competing and they're absolutely nervous as possibly can be, but maybe I get to walk by and have a quick conversation about what they're excited for and when they do compete. And that's going to be my favorite part, right? Like, you're not going to remember what the national officers did, but every person who goes to national convention comes back with a story and comes back with an impactful change and progression in their career. And I'm excited to see glimpses of that through the week.
There you go. I hear some Jesse Murphy playing on
I know.
the intercom at the airport.
We just hear like, boy, man.
Randomly here to
It
put
was
songs
just at
playing.
the state fair in Iowa, but yeah, I love that you're talking about that feeling that's invoked at National Convention. I think we can all reminisce for a moment and think about, like, when I went to National Convention, I remember the time I felt embarrassed because my skirt ripped. I remember the time I felt successful because, if you win a contest or you get to participate in something. And so for each member that's listening, that feeling that's invoked, I think we can all relate to that. So once you get past National Convention, what is next for you, Thad? Obviously, you won't be a National FFA officer anymore. You'll always have that experience, and you'll always be one of an alumni of sorts to the FFA. But what is your next, goal that you've set for yourself, or next career thing that you're off to?
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna take you a quick tangent and then I'm gonna get back to that. So you mentioned being humiliated at convention, the skirt ripping.
Yes.
My funny moment is my sophomore year of convention. I bought my first cowboy hat, and on our farm in Central Illinois, like we don't have cowboy culture. We don't have Western culture, at least in my family. Like some people wear cowboy boots, but like we are plain ball cap and Red Wings. You know what I mean? Or like Caterpillar work boots, whatever you buy. So like I wear cowboy boots for the first time. My dad's like, "What are you doing? Like that's just not us, right?" But convention, I think I'm cool. I buy a cowboy hat, and then like 2 or 3 times during the week, FFA members from Texas and Missouri come over to me and they're like, "Hey, your hat's on. Your hat's backwards, son. Like be or your hat." That was an ag teacher. Like, "Hey, dude, your hat's backwards." And so like 2 or 3 times, I had to turn my cowboy hat the other way around because I was wearing it wrong at national convention. So I don't know who you are out there. Like if you corrected a young little blonde boy from Illinois on how to wear his cowboy hat, that was me. Um, but like that's part of convention is helping each other through, learning the culture, having a fun time, trying out new things. uh, yeah, hopefully I find those people someday. And what I'm doing after is going back to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Got roughly 2.5 years left in my major. I'm studying agriculture consumer economics in the Department of ACE, and then my concentration is going to be finance and agribusiness. I'd like to say that this year hasn't shown me what role I'm going to take specifically, but it's definitely helped me understand what I'm curious about. And that's, I'm a huge numbers nerd. I love finance, and I love that combined with agriculture. And I've really loved corporate visits with Rabobank, with Lincoln Electric, with Merck Animal Health. And I love combining that passion for financing and that critical thinking of strategic direction with how we can continue to push ag forward. So we'll find out more what that looks like as I go about my school journey and get back to doing homework for the first time in over a year. Lord help me, but we'll get through. That's what's next.
I cannot say I would look forward to the homework, but I think you've got a great head on your shoulders. And, thinking about those strategic meetings that you guys have had with companies that support the National FFA organization, I think that's awesome that you can relate them to your future career or see, I'm a little bit more curious about Bravo Bank or whatever they're doing with this and kind of figure out, because I feel like a lot of people equate, national officers with doing like more of a communications or some sort of role that's really united with people, and people forget that financial people also have to talk to people every day. I work with an ag lender, or he used to be a past ag lender, and one of those big parts of his job is talking to people that he works with and talking to farmers that want to invest and want to get a loan and things like that. So still very much a people job at heart, but I'm excited for what's to come for you and after national convention.
Hey, just because you're a people person doesn't mean you can't be a nerd too, right? Like,
You can't be
a
both.
couple things can be true.
So I think that it would be pretty confident to say that your final encouragement to any FFA members would be to own your story, embrace your talents, and wear that jacket proudly. Am I wrong?
I like it.
Well, thank
No.
you so much for coming on here. I know that you've been in an airport, but you really fit us in, and we appreciate it because it has been great getting to talk to you.
Yeah, and I'd say I listened to, that welcome podcast y'all did, and passion and purpose is kind of your 2-word into every episode, right? Or kind of the intro and the end. And I was thinking through it, and I'd read a book recently, and one of their lines was, "Don't sacrifice the truth at the altar of alliteration," which is a really interesting phrase. And the more I stewed on it, I was like, okay, be careful not to misrepresent the truth because what sounds catchy, right? So then I was thinking passion and purpose is like, what does that really mean? Let's dive in deeper. I was like, well, passion and purpose is all about direction and then execution, right? Like where are you pointed? Where are you headed? And then once you decide that direction, what's going to bring you there? And so I thought through it and I was like, that resonates with this podcast. So I wasn't just going to let that phrase go by without diving into it. And I think it fits y'all and I love it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Thad. We're really looking forward to National FFA Convention in October. But for those of you listening, make sure to tune in every Friday for Beyond the Jacket. We have FFA students from across the country that will be participating in interviews with Paige, Lacey, and I. And so we're excited to keep this momentum going and find other students' passion and purpose as we go throughout the year. So thank you.